Extraction 2 is the brand new Netflix original film, which hit the streamer on June 16th. This is the sequel to one of the most watched Netflix original movies of all time, the first Extraction film in 2020. Sam Hargrave, former stunt coordinator in the MCU, especially for Captain America, returns for his second directorial film after the first Extraction. And once again, this film is co-written and produced by the Russo brothers. Chris Hemsworth returns as Tyler Rake. After surviving the events of the ending of the original film, Rake has 9 months to recover until he is brought back into the fold by Idris Elba's new character, who sends him on a mission that is very personal to Rake. Rake brings his team with him, which is Nick Khan, played by Golsevif Ferrari, and her brother Yaz, played by Adam Bessa. The film is 2 hours and 2 minutes long and is rated R. Welcome back to a brand new Netflix movie review here at Max Talks Movies. My name is Max Denenberg. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe, ring the bell. I do movie reviews, TV show reviews, movie rankings, and a box office breakdown show every Monday. So please subscribe, ring the bell, comment down below. First of all, if you've seen Extraction 2, did you like it? Did you think it's better than the first one? Do you want to see it become a big time franchise for Netflix? All those things. If you have not seen it, tell me. If you're not going to check it out, have you seen the first Extraction? Let me know in the comment section down below, and please like the video, guys. It really helps the algorithm out so more people can check out this video. So coming into this movie overall, I wasn't that pumped for it. The first film for me was a fun but forgetful movie. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 back in 2020, and I maybe saw one trailer for this movie a couple months ago, and I just didn't remember anything that was going to happen in this movie. I did remember pieces of what happened towards the end of the first Extraction, but it wasn't a movie that was particularly memorable, other than it's like known for its that one take action scene. So I had I guess not very low expectations, but I was just trying to have a fun time on Netflix. And let's start with my positives, then we'll get to my negatives, and then my score. For me, the biggest positive that I want to say is that this is the most surprised I've ever been by watching a movie all year long. I was not expecting this to be as great as I believe this movie is. This is a fantastic action film, really from start to finish. And I think it's a huge improvement over the first film, which I think, while both films don't have a lot of story going on, you can tell that based on the huge success that the first film had, this movie had, it felt like better budgets, better locations. And Sam Hargrave, who again, Extraction was the first film he ever directed, finally got that under his belt. So now he can finally, after finally directing a movie, he can finally now move on and understand what it's like to be behind the director's chair. And he really comes to his own in this movie. I think there's a lot of positives to go around this movie, but I do want to start with the director, Sam Hargrave, who's been a stunt coordinator. This is very similar to the track that Chad Stahelski had, the director of the 4 John Wick films. He was obviously the stunt coordinators for the Matrix films, and Hargrave was the stunt coordinator for a lot of the MCU films, particularly being Captain America's stunt double, and also did stunt choreography for films like Atomic Blonde as well. So now becoming a director, this is such a well-made movie and so well directed. Hargrave is a fantastic filmmaker. After watching this movie, there were so many jaw-dropping shots. Now, yes, we're going to get into that 21-minute now long take that they do in this movie, which is absolutely stunning. But the movie just flows so much better. And I think being in the locations, being in Austria that we are for the majority of the film, they're in gorgeous locations. If there is CGI use, you really can't tell that they're in a green screen situation. And you can tell what all the stunts are doing. This is, again, going to be compared to John Wick. And I think what John Wick has is different and good. I think you can have both in the movie space. John Wick has obviously a lot more world building going on, but this franchise does not need that type of depth of world building to be considered a fun and great action film. And I think this is exactly what this is. Sam Hargrave has come to his own. I think any action franchise moving forward should highly look into Sam Hargrave as their director, because obviously this franchise could be a big deal following this movie. Now, again, the other huge plus of this movie is, of course, Chris Hemsworth, who this is already a more consistent franchise than his MCU Thor stuff. And again, Hemsworth has really struggled outside of the MCU in his career, finding those really good or great projects. A lot of them have kind of flopped, including the 2016 Ghostbusters, the Huntsman's Winter War, If you want to even keep going with Men in Black, um, even Spiderhead was a pretty forgetful Netflix movie. He just has struggled finding the mainstream audience in a good way since outside of Thor, and he's really found that now with Extraction. Tyler Rake is going to be one of the top action heroes for a lot of people now moving forward. First of all, he sounds like a good action hero name. But more importantly, they do add a lot more depth into Tyler's story in this film. Now, you knew in the last film that he was obviously going through a lot, having to protect a kid. That was obviously a big deal because his son sadly passed away. I think it was like cancer or something, very young, in the movie. And Rake obviously had that to overcome in the first film. That adds a lot more depth based on the people who Rake is extracting. Now, I was shocked to learn that even in the plot synopsis, you do not really know what any of the plot is, who he is extracting, what it means to him. So that now, obviously, thankfully, I looked that up before going into this review. I won't bring that up here, but it adds a lot more depth into the story. And there's actually a lot more emotional beats that I think worked, that I think felt really flat in the original film. So I think that's a total upgrade. His team is also fantastic. As I said, Farhani as Nick Khan, she is fantastic, and I think she needs to be used more here in the United States a lot more often by a lot of studios. She's fantastic in the movie. She has great chemistry with Hemsworth, and you can tell, even though you haven't seen tons of time with them together, you buy their friendship, you buy the trust that they have in each other and their bond. And I do feel like you feel that in this movie. Her brother Yaz, played by Adam Best, is a great comic relief in the movie. He does have a lot of good, funny jokes. And again, the brother-sister relationship between the Khans in this film are fantastic, and it brings some of the best emotional beats in the entire film. But again, those performances are great, but it really is the action. The 21-minute prison sequence, which you'll know of once it starts, it's absolutely jaw-dropping. Now, yes, they probably didn't shoot it, and definitely didn't for the full 21 minutes straight, but it just feels like it's 21 minutes of a one cut. It's so seamless. The action is brutal in this movie. This is rated R, and there's some violent action that goes on, which is fantastic. But as I said, even though it's dark out, you can see everything that's going on. You can see all the work that the stunt people are putting in. And very similar to the John Wick films, you can actually tell that it's Hemsworth himself in all of the stunts. And I think that's what also brings a lot of the authenticity out of this film, very similar to what Keanu does for John Wick. I think Chris Hemsworth is now doing for the Extraction franchise on Netflix. And that's not just, and yes, there's a lot of headlines, and everyone will be talking about this 21-minute prison sequence in this movie, but there's so many other action sequences which are also fantastic. There's one on the top of a roof, which is highly entertaining. There's multiple fantastic action scenes in the movie, and while yes, there's going to be one that's obviously going to be special and seen as above the rest, this movie doesn't have any boring or lackluster action in it. It keeps it fun and entertaining throughout the entire runtime. As I said, the violence is great. The hand-to-hand combat is great. The gun work is great. It's also clever as well. And you can really tell the passion that both the director, the stunt people, and Hemsworth have for, and Farhani as well, for the passion they have for stunt work and making these action scenes the best that they can be. So this was an absolute total blast. I'm shocked how much I love this movie. And I'm dying now for an Extraction 3. Because again, this is the most watched Netflix. First film was one of the most watched Netflix films of all time, and now here we are with Extraction 2. Now, yes, for my a couple critiques that I do have with the movie, the villains themselves, they don't really feel like as big of threats as I think I wanted them to feel like. And the movie kind of the movie comes into motion for the most part by one person's decision and decisions, and sometimes it kind of felt forced, and this person needed to make this decision to keep the movie going, which I wasn't the biggest fan of. And I think while the villains got into all the action, I just didn't feel like the villains were any threat to Tyler. But I do feel like they were much bigger threats than they were in the first film. So I think the villains were interesting, but I think they got to touch a bit more. If they were to have this much screen time, I think they could have had more depth to those characters, is what I'm saying. They're definitely interesting, but not the most fascinating or compelling characters, of course. And the movie doesn't have, obviously, a great story going on. but that doesn't really matter. This really is a fantastic action film. I don't think it's as good as John Wick Chapter 4 as there's a lot more story and world building and plus all the action in John Wick Chapter 4. But this is a fantastic, for me, action film. A huge upgrade over Extraction 1 all those years ago. Hemsworth has finally found his big franchise following the MCU. I cannot wait for I wanted Extraction 3 like right away when the movie ended. One of the most pleasant surprises I've had gotten all year watching a movie or a show. So I'm going to give Extraction 2 a 4.5 out of 5. I am going to go 87% for Extraction 2. Go check it out. It's available now on Netflix. So please like the video, subscribe, ring the bell. More videos coming. See you guys soon.